was a poor stonemason. But what he lacked in money, he made up for in ambition. He thought, I will be as rich as the king himself. I will live in a castle to rival the royal palace. I will wed the king's daughter. But working as a stonemason, he made barely enough for him to live. So he decided to become a thief. And he was good at it. Oh yes. In 2 years' time, that mason was one of the wealthiest men in the town. And the name, the sly thief of Valenciennes, was on everyone's lips. But nobody knew who he was, because he did all of his thieving at night. During the day, well, he was a stonemason. And it seemed to everyone that he was quite a good stonemason, because his wealth was growing and growing. I mean, first, he became a master mason and had all these masons working for him. Eventually, he became an architect and a well-respected member of the community. But at night, he was the sly thief of Valenciennes. But he wasn't satisfied. No. Yes, he was rich, but not nearly as rich as the king. And sure, he lived in a fine house, but it was nothing compared to the royal palace. And to that point, he had not taken a step closer to wedding the princess. So he decided to take action. He packed up and he moved to Paris. Oh yes, there, in Paris, he continued his double life. By day, an architect, and becoming a well-respected citizen, yes. And by night, he retained the name, the sly thief of Valenciennes, and he prepared his finest heist. It seems so simple then. How does one become as rich as the king? Surely, one must steal the king's treasure. So now, at this point in the story, one should hear the music to Mission Impossible. You know, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, good. So,
Dun, 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 dun.
the king's palace, yes, had all of its treasure in one circular tower. Yeah, and the tower was connected to the palace itself by only a slight stone passageway, and in that, a door with one key that the king himself carried everywhere. To get into the castle, one had to go through the passage, into the palace, and get through the guards. It was impossible. Well, this was no ordinary thing, was it? He was a mason. He was an architect, and he knew more about buildings, towers, than your average man. He knew that the men that made that building would have left a secret passage in. So one evening, he decided to take a little stroll by the palace. And as he crossed the tower, he pulled out a little hammer. And he tested the stone. He had found what he was looking for, and he raced home. He raced home and got together all his preparations. He dressed in old, dirty clothes, ratty clothes, and he attached a farmer's cart to his horse. That cart was filled with burlap sacks a lantern and some tools. And he headed off down the streets, the back streets of Paris, to the palace. When he got there, he found the stone again, and he removed the what's that called? The cement, you know. And he pushed, and it opened. And he grabbed some sacks and the lantern, and he headed off through the rock and into the palace. There was a small, narrow corridor, and at the end there was another rock. And he removed that stuff, cement, I don't know, and he popped it open, and he lit his lantern. And he knew what was going to be there, but he could not believe his eyes. Gems, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, gold, and silver piled high. And he set to work. He filled his sack. He filled one up and the other, and he raced back to his court and threw them in. Grabbed more sacks, came back. Grabbed more sacks, came back. Hour after hour, he worked through the night. And as the dawn broke, he looked at his cart, filled, bursting with treasure. And he looked into the chamber that was now half empty. And he said, "That's enough. Half of the king's gold. I'm now as rich as the king." And he felt quite good about himself. And he shut the rock, and he sealed it up with a little bit of cement, left it just as new. And he hopped into his cart, and he headed out. And as he turned the corner of the palace, boom, there were some guards. And the sly thief spurred his horse and tipped his hat to the guards. And those poor guards saw what to them was just a farmer with a cart full of potatoes and turnips, and they tipped their hat to him and waved goodbye to the sly thief, of Elmsford. Thank you.